Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. Saturday today, and this afternoon there is rugby on. So any work that's getting done out here gets done AM in time to sit down and have some lunch and then settle down for the rugby, probably fall asleep, but so be it. And I've got 4 Oncidium types here, intergenerics, and the reason they're all in together is because they will go in the same media. They've all got old repot dates, so they've all been in these pots a while, and they've all got cocoa husk in the mix. The combination of those two things means that they need doing. So we will get on with those. Yeah, that's about it really. I'm going to make the mess first and get all of them out of their pots, clean them up and sort that out, and then we'll come back, you know, mix up, well, have some media and get them potted up. They may go back in the same pots, but if they do, I will need to give them a clean first because they've been in there a while. So we'll start off with this one. Now this one has recently bloomed, it's just gone out of bloom now. So now's a good time because it should push out some new growth soon. It hasn't done yet, but I'm sure it will. And in addition to that, this one had a load of moss put round the top of the pot because the last set of roots were coming out high and not going in the media. So I suspect that's where a lot of the roots are, under the moss. Right, rare pot that one, very rare pot, wide and shallow with very large drainage holes. I'd like some of those, I really would. I think that's the only one I've got. Right, so the roots on here aren't bad. Now looking at the media, last time this was repotted it didn't get all of the old roots taken off because there's a lot of dead roots in the centre here. So it looks like it was potted in such a way that the new roots would go down the outside of the pot into the new media at the time, and the old roots would remain undisturbed. Which you can get away with that, but you know, if you've got old roots in the centre of your pot that are either dead or gonna die, you know that they will start turning the media off as a consequence of them breaking down. So they're better off out of it, but you can get away with not doing it. Right, sheaths off. I don't know why I didn't do that last time round, I'm sure. But we will take the sheaths off now, and often when I'm doing this, when I repot, it reveals the start of the new growths. So I'm not sure it's going to do that this time round. Some of these sheaths don't half want to hang on there, don't they? Right, so that's got the sheaths off. Now, one thing I was expecting was an awful lot of scale, and there is hardly any. There was a few on the oldest pseudo bulb down there. Right, now, to get this potted up nicely, some of these old bulbs have got to come off because otherwise they will get buried. So we will be coming in, this one's got to go, so we'll come in straight down from above and take that off. That will take a lot of roots with it. This one's got to come off for the same reason. So again, come down hard from above. These, I often get asked, where do you get your scissors? Well, they've got nothing whatsoever to do with orchids. Those are bonsai pruning shears. They're stainless steel, very sharp, and they've got a lot of leverage. As you can see, the pivot point is very close to the tip of the scissors. So I've got all that leverage, yeah, in a confined space. So they are sharp and they cut through very well. And being stainless steel, they don't go blunt very often. They do go blunt occasionally, I have to sharpen them, but not a big deal. Right, now luckily with those removal of those 2 bulbs, most of the older part of the plant came off. Now all of the pseudo bulbs on here are quite shriveled. Now when you get old shriveled pseudo bulbs, really old, they very rarely plump up. So you have to ask yourself, why am I keeping them? Because they're not really much of a backup for the plant. If they've got leaves, keep them. If they haven't, you have to think about, well, what good are they? You know, they've all shriveled up. Now this is a shriveled bulb, it's got leaves. So is this. This one's going. It's going to get some help because it's completely yellow, so it serves no purpose, but it's still got a green one at the moment. That'll be the next one to go. This shriveled pseudo bulb has no leaves, so I'm going to remove it. It's too far gone. It'll never plump up again, and the amount it can store is virtually negligible. Let's tidy up that rhizome cut because that was a bad one. There we go. So that's that done. I don't see any more cocoa husk in there. There's some bits of charcoal. Oh, hang on, there's a few bits here. I want any bits of cocoa husk I want out, because they will turn the media sour. Right, that's quite a tidy little plant now. We'll have to keep the, I'm just going to trim the bottom of the roots. Branching root system, yeah, and this is going to go in a smaller pot this time round. Where the new growths will come from I don't know, but I suspect those two bulbs there, probably. So that's that one done. Nothing else to do with that. I will bring the cinnamon in and put the cinnamon on those rhizome cuts before we pot it up. So that's one. And has that got a tag? I'm sure it has a tag. You need to keep the tags with the plants. If the worst comes to the worst, I mean that was Tahitian Dancer. If the worst comes to the worst, I can go back to the video, having just named it, and put a tag in. Because we've filmed the plant, we know what it looks like, so we wouldn't lose track. That has happened so many times in the past that it's almost laughable. Right, that's one. Now this one is a little bit unusual. This grew two new growths like this. Sorry, it grew one new growth and it split and it was badly distorted. The last two new growths that it pushed out are this one and this one. So it's gone distorted again over this side of the plant, but this side of the plant has come back true and grown a nice bulb with leaves on. So, and this is a trade name. I doubt if this is a registered name. Oncidium Cheyenne. I'll put pop-ups of the blooms as the pop-ups of the names come up, so that you can see what they look like, or looked like last time they bloomed. What have we got here? An enormous amount of dead. Look at the scale that there once was on that bulb. They're all dead. But that's obviously had a bad infestation. This has got a lot of cocoa husk in it, this one. And we've got a fair bit of root dieback. But what I want to do with this one is take off all of the old parts of the plant that are anywhere near that distorted growth. And that means taking off two very plump bulbs, but they're covered in scale, and although they appear to be dead, there might be the odd one still lurking in there that isn't. So let's get them there. So if we get those bulbs off now, the idea of taking the bulbs off as early as possible is that you don't end up messing about with the roots that are on a bulb you're about to cut off. Right, now that's too much for my scissors. So we get the big stuff out. Put too much strain on those scissors, it is possible to bend them, whereas this does the job. And that one cut has taken both of those old bulbs off, which is what I wanted. And associated dead roots. I can use the scissors to tidy up the cut because it's more like a tear. So that's that done. Right, sheaths. We've got live scale there. And we happen to have some alcohol which I can just rub on with my fingers and hopefully knock those down. Why I want to get on with this work, one, because I want to watch the rugby and have a restful afternoon, and two, I want to put the hot box on. So, because the gaps in the use of the hot box are getting longer, and that's not the idea. The idea is not too long each session, and right, so now that distorted bulb I want gone, because I don't know what's caused it, but if it's removed it should take away. So those are alive, so just dip my finger in the alcohol, give them a rub and then wipe them off completely, and then we look inside that leaf, see if there's any more, or are they just lurking on the outside. No, they're all in there as well. So I'm going to ease that leaf away, and again get the alcohol on. So now this plant is actually a long way from where the hot box goes on, so it might be that, you know, the fumes are not getting to this part of the grow room, so I shall have to go careful and watch out for that sort of thing. Now I'm going to look down inside every single leaf now, every bract, every leaf, and double check. The new growth is fine, not a sign of anything there, and on that latest new growth we have another one, so that will be where the roots will come from. Jolly good. You may even get another new growth. There's a few down in there, but not many. And down in there. What about down in there? No, that's good. Right, so that's that. Cocoa husk out, and now my hands absolutely stink of alcohol, so be it. Scissors back in there. I'm using the alcohol for the scissors in between plants because I am doing multiple plants. I always put them away clean, but you know, so if I was only doing one plant, they would come out clean and go away clean. But I'm just getting these old roots off around the base centre of the plant, as they're dead anyway. There's only a few, only a few. Not what I would call half the root system, although it is a fair bit of it. But what's left should be reasonable roots. And again, this may well go in a smaller pot this time. So that will branching root system, so a quick trim across the bottom, gets it in a smaller pot, more contact with the media, and hopefully the roots will grow on. So that's not bad. That's not a bad plant now. Once upon a time that looked a right mess. It's coming on, it's coming back, it's getting better. And hopefully, as I said, that may pull on now. So that's Cheyenne. As I say, it's a trade name. That's two. I have to bag this up. I used to chuck stuff out, you know, onto the garden, but it's starting to show now where there's no more leaves coming down out the tree. It ends up sitting on the top, and you just see a pile of dead roots. It's obvious I'm throwing stuff on there. What was I going to say? Oh yes, a little bit of news. I'll say this again tomorrow in the Sunday chat, but so far it's now the 11th of March and the lady with the camera hasn't even made contact with me, let alone booked an appointment to come round. So either I got it wrong or they've forgotten me or possibly they've lost the lady. And she may well have been the only one who knows how to work that kit. And she may have left, she might be on holiday, there's all sorts of might be's. But look at the algae on that. That's one good reason for doing it. Now this one is, it's marked down as a Cambria, but I'll show you the blooms on this. They are spectacular, which is why I got it in the first place. But this one, the new growth's pushed out high, so I put some moss around. You can see they're very high, they're aerial in the main. Now, one of the goals of repotting this is to get them back in the soil. Now this is actually in bud on the latest growth that's maturing, but we have other new growths coming. So I'll have to have a think what I'm going to do with this once I get this algae off. Right, oldest roots, shoots, they can come off now. Quite a few of them. I've got to go careful here because we may. We've got two plants here. I do believe we might have two plants. But I want to take some of these off, these shriveled up bulbs that are deep, so they would have to get buried in. So I'll take them off one at a time carefully. Yeah, that's what I thought. That is a separate piece. And that is a nuisance, because that's a small piece. And I bet there's not many roots on it. No. Deal with that one in a minute. Let's deal with this piece. This is the one that's got the two new growths coming. That's the one that's got a more mature new growth that's actually coming into bloom. Is it worth trying to keep this as a single plant? Let's get the sheaths off and see what I'm dealing with here. Yeah, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate these and put them together in a small pot to grow on. So we'll separate that one. That will be a shriveled back bulb, a growth, and a new growth pushing on out of it. So that. And there's new roots forming, so this should pick up reasonably quickly. It's growing new roots. We'll get this into some nice new media and it should push on. As I say, with new roots actually growing. Is it worth keeping these old ones? Yeah, we'll keep some of them. There's my skizzer's gone. Right, so there we go. So that's one piece. It's a shriveled bulb that's serving no purpose really, but no, there may be some goodness left in there that can feed the plants. So that's one. Then I'm going to do the same with this one. Sheaths off. Dealing with now. This new growth is starting new root growth here. So that's good. Old flower spike. This great big shriveled bulb here I'm going to take off. And the sheaths. And you've got a lot of old dead roots on this bit. Not very good. Hardly worth keeping them, but if I don't keep them there'll be nothing to hold the plant into the pot and it will wobble around and then that can damage the new roots. Right, so that's another piece, and then we've got the piece that's got the bud on, which strictly speaking I ought to take off, but we'll see what it does. Sheaths off. This piece has got no signs of root growth at all. It's not very strong, but it's got the most number of leaves. So we'll see what it does when it gets sat in some new media. Right, so that's three. All the same. I need to put them somewhere. somewhere else. They can go in my glass down there because it's 3 pieces. Right, that's that. That's coffee. Right, and then this one's got a spike on it as well. This is Bobcat. This has got a spike growing here that's already starting to branch. But that is not as vigorous a spike as last time. And there's our next new growth starting to come now. So let's see what we've got in this pot. The old tired root system. Now the back bulbs on this are enormous and very, very plump. That one needs to come off. It's rotten if it isn't going to fall off anyway. I can see some liquid down near the base of that, so that's got to come off at the base. I do believe the rot has just started to get into this bulb. So although it's a lovely big fat bulb, actually I'm going to leave it. It might just be the coloration. I'm going to leave it, and if it starts to show signs of rotting, then I can cut it off in situ. Cut down through the media into the base. Right, so what have we got left then? Some very old tired roots here, a lot of them. Not much in the way of new roots, I must admit. What we've got is quite a few new roots, like here, that have grown upwards. How to get them to touch the media when we repot it. So if I repot that, that's going to have to be buried, so it's going to have to come off. To get the plant level, that one is going to have to come off. And the fact that it came away so easily, I would say that the rot was probably already into the rhizome and starting its evil work. Right, that's better. Now these roots are old and tired, and again, the only purpose they will serve is to give it something to pot, so that it will stand up in the pot, and then hopefully some new ones will get down in. It's just the oldest part of the plant, really. That's what it is. Those all off were around the old part of the plant. One piece of cocoa husk hanging on for dear life. Oh no, you don't, matey. Right, so there we go, that's that one. This bulb seems loose, but it is actually connected, so I'm going to leave it. If I don't leave it, I'll be down to 2 bulbs and a new growth with a flower spike. I think this has got 2 nice leaves on it. I think we'll keep it. So that's that one. And where's my tag? Where's my tag? Have I thrown it away? Maybe it didn't have one. What? Well, I can't see it anywhere. Oh, there it is. It's because it was black. It's got buried. Right, so that's Bobcat. Tuck that in the leaf and put that in there. Right, I shall clear up, sort out suitable pots, and I'll be back. Right, had a good clean up, pot washing session. Cleaned this with alcohol, gets the dirt off as well as sort of sterilising it again. Now, I've got small bark for the use of, big bark for crocking, well, medium bark for crocking, and I've got some old mix that I'm desperately trying to use up. So we'll start with that. Nothing wrong with it, it's just, you know, it was mixed up for other things and needs using up basically. Now that's a mix of bark and perlite, and that's about it. I don't think there's anything else in there. There's a couple of bits of charcoal in there, but they're probably from the previous mix that got poured in and then some more added to it. We don't waste stuff basically. Now I'm going to need quite a lot, so we'll start with that. I'm going to add a lot of small bark. Again, if I mix up too much, it will go in the bag and stay for next time. Now to that, I'm going to add some growth stones. So they'll get dotted in and in around, and then we're going to go in with the perlite. This was the first thing that I got Hannah to order because she's on Amazon Prime, so I didn't pay for postage on this, which made it very cheap. We'll add some perlite in there. Also, I've been looking at a lot of mixes that nurseries are using. Perlite's always in there, or it seems to be. Word of warning, the dust off of perlite is shouldn't be breathed in really. Most of the dust there is coming off the bark. the bark out of the bag, not the other stuff. Right, so that's my mix. That might not be enough, depends how we go. Right, I'm going to start with this because it's a big one and I know it's going to go in a big pot. This is the one that's got a spike starting and also a new growth to push on and some strange root activity that seem to want to grow upwards rather than downwards. So see if we can get the next lot of roots to go down in the pot. So I'm going to use one of these bigger pots. I'm going to put some crocking in the bottom. Add some media on top of that, and then I want this plant to go in quite deep. Now there's only just enough room for this new growth to grow, but there is enough room for it to grow. It's going to be tight in the pot and I'm happy with that. So some down the back, rest down the front and sides. Now I've said before, but I'll say it again, I try and use a dry mix when I'm potting. This is why. If you do that with pre-soaked bark, it won't go down in all the gaps, it'll just stick to each other and the sides and the bulbs, and it won't go down, it won't fill the gaps up. Whereas if it's dry, it will. But what you do have to remember, obviously, is to give it a really good watering afterwards, because the dry mix, not pre-soaked, you pour the water through there, the first thing it will do is wash the dirt out, that's good, and then it will dry incredibly quickly. So that's that one done. That is Oncidium Wildcat Bobcat. It says there. Somewhere to go. Floor for now. Sort out where it goes later. Right, so that's one done. Right, now I've got another big pot there and I can't remember which one it was for. Probably the 3. So that they've got some space to grow on, because when you put 3 separate plants in theory you're going to get 3 new growths. So there needs to be, and there's already 2 and 1 maturing. So Yeah, we'll put those in a big pot, but we'll plant them deep. So a bit of crocking again. Some media in the bottom, roots to grow into, and then these are just going to sit on the top. New growths pointing to the outside of the pot, not towards the middle, like that. All the bases of the plants at the same height, which I will hold. And pour enough media in to get them settled so that I can let go. Yeah, this is the thing, when you do this, to settle the media all in the gaps of the roots and all that sort of stuff, if it's wet, it just doesn't work. That process won't happen. It'll stick all over the place. But like I said, you do have to consider that if you aren't going to pre-soak your bark, then you will need to water thoroughly when you finish repotting. Thoroughly, absolute drowning, yeah? And then, a couple of days later, you need to do it again. Right, so new growths have all got somewhere to be. I really ought to do a new label for that, didn't I? Maybe I will, but not now. That's that one done. Right, what's next then? We're now into smaller pots. I've got a shallow one. Do you know what? If I had the time and the effort and the initial outlay, I'd try and find somewhere that can take that design as a pot, i.e. the ratio between that and that and that, the drainage, and I'd get some of these made up. You know, like 1,000 of each, and then sell them. You just cannot get that sort of pot. That pot comes up quite frequently, but you can see it's a lot deeper. Well, you can turn this pot into this pot by only taking the media up to there, whereas this one you fill up to the rim, you know, up to the line. Yeah, so you've made them both the same size, but your plant's down in there. Or you put a shed load of crocking in the bottom and then use it as normal, but it's still become a shallow pot, even though it isn't. You can just fool it into thinking it's a shallow pot. Right, so what was going to go in the shallow pot? I think it was going to be the Tahitian dancer. Oh, that was a mistake, wasn't it? I threw these in my watering bowl, not realising there was water in there. So there's me going on about dry media, and I've now got soaking plants, wet plants. Also got some bits of old media there that I haven't got rid of. Not to worry. Right, so this one hasn't got any new growths at all. It's recently bloomed, so it's effectively resting. So this doesn't need much water now, not for some time. So we'll put it in the shallow one. Bit of that. I think that's what it came out of. Some of that. We'll sit that on the top. As I said, it's not going to be so easy now to get that media to go down in the root gaps because they're wet. So I won't put so much in, and we'll go back to the old wiggle treatment and, you know, literally wiggle the media down in between the roots. Now normally just tapping the side of the pot will do that, but not when it's wet it won't. So you have to give it some help. Look at the sides, make sure you haven't got any big air gaps, and then top up. Now the other thing I forgot to mention is that when you've got I forgot what I was going to say now. So I spotted some white fluffy things on a leaf. Total distraction. When you've got What sentence follows on from when you've got? Totally thrown me. When you've got. That's gone. Tough. Whatever I was going to say is completely gone. I can't say what I was going to say if I've completely lost my train of thought. Easily distracted. It's bad when that sort of stuff happens. Oh right, I'm there now, because I got hold of some media and topped the pot up. When you've got a plant that effectively needs to go down in the media perhaps a bit further than you'd like, you know, in other words the base of the bulbs are in the media, when the media is new it doesn't matter, because the evaporation off the top of that pot will be rapid. So you may soak the whole pot, the top half an inch or so will be dry very quickly. So the fact that the bulbs are sitting in it doesn't matter until the media starts to get old, at which point it will start holding moisture longer. This is something you should observe and deal with. By then you should have got a good root system, and you can lift some of that surface media off. Right, one to go. Have we got enough? Have we got enough? We've got another wet plant, I know that. What was this one then? This was the Cheyenne. Lovely blooms on this. Reminiscent of Peggy Ruth Carpenter springs to mind. Sort of. But, you know, I put a picture up earlier on so you know what we're looking at here. Now we've got the eye of a new growth here. And we've got some viable roots in amongst this tangle. They're not all old and dead. And we've got signs of new roots coming. Media down the back of the pot first, and then push the plant to the back so that where the new growth's coming out has got all the room it needs. Again, we'll have to do the poking to get the media down in the roots because it's wet. The roots are wet, so it will stick to them. And being an Oncidium type, air gaps are not the best of things. It's not the end of the world, but it's better if you haven't got them. Now if it was a Cattleya, or say a Phalaenopsis, a few air gaps wouldn't matter because they need more air around the roots than Oncidium types do. Right, so that new growth is just showing through the media. I don't want that buried. Right, tag back in. And that wasn't a bad guess with the media, was it? Nonetheless, waste not, want not, that will still go back in the bag to be used another time. That's a small pot, you know, we won't waste it. Right, so that's a repotting session for intergeneric type Oncidiums, although one was actually an Oncidium, genuine, but mostly intergenerics there. I mean, this one says Oncidium Cheyenne. Well, it isn't. It's not an Oncidium with blooms looking like that. Highly unlikely. It's a mix. So anyway, long video, sorry about that. Some people like them, some people don't. Those that don't aren't listening anymore, they're no longer here, they've bailed out. Those that like them, thanks for staying with it, thanks for staying to the end. Subtle hint on what you need to do next before you leave the video. And also, if you're watching and you're not subscribed, it would be awfully nice if you did so. As I said, if you don't want to be pestered with an email every time I actually post a video, then just don't set notifications. But subscribing would be good, it helps the channel grow. Okay, so that's 4 pots, 4 plants, hopefully out of the woods now. As we come into the longer days and the warmer temperatures, which I'm artificially doing, hopefully these will start to respond and come back into growth. See you next time. Thanks for dropping by.